All right, it is time to take a deep dive into Ahsoka Episode 4. Welcome back to the Force with Friends podcast. My name is Will with the Padawan Pops YouTube channel, and this is Kevin. And we are going to break down Episode 4 of Ahsoka, and man, is there a lot to talk about. So very briefly, here is the layout for today's episode. We're going to have a quick episode review. We're going to talk about Marok, Sabine versus Shin, Ahsoka versus Baylan, the New Republic, Anakin and the World Between Worlds. And then lastly, we're going to try to take a guess at where on Earth we think Episode 5 is going to go. That will probably be
some shots in the dark for sure.
Yeah, that's going to be, I'm still not sure. So Kevin, just quick review or quick thoughts. What did you think about Episode 4 as a whole?
I mean, yeah, it was kind of like what everybody had been predicting it would be, right? It was this big battle throughout the forest, which was exciting. I definitely don't think that it shorted us on that. But then I was surprised with how much happened at the end of the episode, which we'll obviously get into. I think there were things that we thought might be a little further down the road that all just kind of came to a head instantly. So
yeah.
It was a pretty wild episode with a pretty wild ending. So it was fun. I had a really good time watching. I mean, you and I, we texted for literally like the last 24 hours after it aired.
We really have
all the stuff to talk about. So
yeah,
it was fun.
Yeah, I mean, it's crazy. I mean, that was a 40-minute episode, and it was good. Like, last week was short, but it didn't feel short. This week was a little bit longer, but man, it felt a lot longer to me. I don't know about you.
No, I thought you did for sure.
And that, we'll get to it, but like that last minute of the episode seemed to me like it lasted a half hour. Just seeing how it came about, but we'll get there. But yes, I loved the episode. As far as grading it, I'm going to give it at the absolute lowest a 9.5 out of 10, but it's probably a 10. What about you?
No, I'd give it a 10. I don't have anything that I didn't like about it, and there were some really, really cool moments.
Yeah.
Both character and lore wise and all that stuff. I mean, I find it hard to believe that people could go into that and not find something that they would like in that episode. So
yeah, it had a little bit of everything for sure.
Yeah.
So quick episode rundown before we dive in. They start off, they have the little droid battle in the forest. So Huyang's out fixing the ship and they attack him, and it's like Rock'em Sock'em robots, like
that's pretty funny.
They're fighting out there, and then Shin and Ahsoka go out and fight, and that turns into the Shin and Marok, and then Ahsoka and Sabine fight, which turns into Ahsoka, Baylan, and then Shin stays and fights Sabine. Eventually, turns into them making the jump to hyperspace, and all at the same time you have the New Republic coming in too little too late, and then of course the ending where Ahsoka is in the World Between Worlds and we see what appears to be Anakin there. So for 40 minutes that was a whole lot of stuff, but I loved it. I mean, I thought it was potentially the greatest Star Wars episode we've had of any of them, and like up there with Mando season 2 finale. I think it's as good as they've done.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
And I mean, you got a big Skywalker reveal at the end anyway, so I mean, it's of the same breath. A lot of action. But let's move in, start going through our topics. I think going into Marok, obviously there was a lot of speculation about who he would be. We kind of bought into it for the most part. Like Sam Witwer was voicing someone. I still think he was probably the voice, but it just didn't have to be Starkiller. I think they were almost toying with us, like naming him Marok and doing that. Like that was a really fun 3 weeks of speculating that. Like they took us over this one direction and we're all like, ooh, Marok, and then episode 4 comes and it goes the other direction and we still love it. So I thought that was great.
No, it drove a lot of speculation, that's for sure. And I wasn't really disappointed. I think it probably works out for the best anyway. If you're gonna throw Starkiller in something, you can probably find a better way to use that character's lore anyway. Yeah. So
or just let him have his video games.
I was fine with it being nobody.
Yeah, I think it's funny because I mean the almost entirely the speculation of the last few weeks has been on who Marok is. Like, because everything else has been quite straightforward as far as the show's going, but we just weren't very sure about him.
Which now looking back, you're like, why were we focused on him? Right?
Yeah, I mean, and I said this in my reaction, like when I was talking about it, I mean, by the end of that episode, I don't even know that Marok was even a character. Yeah. Like, but I will say the fight, like how it mirrored that Tales of the Jedi fight, was very cool. There was some leaks came out a couple days prior that was saying that may be how it went, and it is how it went. And then I thought the live action, because it's essentially the same thing that happened in Tales of the Jedi, but like watching him, you know, just kind of sit there and then explode into the green dust or whatever. I thought that was a pretty cool scene. I mean, he went out as a nobody, but it was pretty cool looking.
It was cool. And the green smoke makes me wonder if he had something to do with Morgan. You know, like Night Sister magic tends to have that kind of green tinge. So I don't know if she was some sort of agent of he was some sort of agent of hers, or what the deal was. But yeah, it was fun. It was a cool little fight.
So there is some speculation that he actually is just like a corpse that she had possessed. So that, you know, what you're saying, that could turn out to play out into fruition, which, you know, we haven't seen that in Star Wars. That'd be pretty interesting.
Especially if she ends up raising some more of them. That could,
right, like a whole army. The one thing, though, that's interesting to me is like the StarWars.com biography or whatever for Marok is like a former Inquisitor that's being commissioned by Morgan Elsbeth. So I don't know, like, I don't know maybe if she's possessing him or not. I would like to know a little bit more, but again, I don't care that much about it.
Yeah, no, I'm the same.
So one final RIP for Marok. We loved you while we had you. It was too short, but we've moved on to bigger and better things now. So,
yes, absolutely.
So moving forward there, next up we have Sabine versus Shin, which I think there's quite a bit to talk about here as far as this battle goes. It was a majority of the episode, her versus Shin was. So what did you think about this?
I love that she donned back all the Mandalorian armor, right? She comes out of the ship fighting in it. And so I thought it was cool. You've been talking about it a little bit, just her kind of trying to combine what she already knows as a Mandalorian with some of Ahsoka's teachings. And so I was happy to see her like use all her tools at her disposal and not just try to do it, you know, kind of the one way Jedi way that maybe Ahsoka feels like she needs to do. I don't know. But yeah, no, it was a fun fight. I was, you know, I don't know how much change there is in terms of how much she's able to hold her own. I feel like that was a big difference from earlier. That was a lot of growth in a short period of time, but at the same time, you know, maybe she was not just trying to focus on the Jedi thing, right? And so maybe that's what gave her a little bit more of an edge. I loved the fake force push into the restaurant.
Yes, that's what I was gonna say.
That was really fun. So yeah, it was cool.
Yeah,
I thought, and she didn't really lose, right? I mean,
right, it was a tie, right? So, I thought like at the beginning, as soon as she runs off the ship when Huyang's fighting the droids, she's got the blasters, right? So she's going full Mando at that point. And that's when I was like, oh, I bet this is kind of how she fights the rest of the episode. And then it was like, so she's chasing Shin with the blasters for the longest, and like it appears Shin is legitimately running from her, you know, like she could have hit her. So I think she went kind of like what you said, less into the Jedi stuff and more into what she knew. And I think that's why, you know, as far as the story goes, why she fared well. She was doing more Mandalorian combat than she was maybe Jedi combat, but still sprinkling in the lightsaber. You know, we saw that, and it was a pretty good lightsaber duel.
Yeah. And I mean, because you got to remember too, she's already received some training, right, with the dark saber. Kanan taught her quite a bit. But I always love watching Mandalorian Beskar just like shrug off blows. She was just taking blaster bolts and took a lightsaber hit. Yeah. So I love seeing that kind of stuff. It's fun.
And that fake force push, like you said, that was so good. Because at first, when she did it, I was like, What if this is where they make her have the force? Because I would have been like, that's too soon.
They've been a little out of place. Yeah.
And obviously they thought the same as well. She fooled her and shot the wrist rocket. And I thought, man, that's like the most Mandalorian thing.
Yeah, it was really cool.
Did you notice, this isn't the Shin fight, but when she was fighting the droid, she shot the little the hook out, you know, on the line and like pulled the guy to her, kind of like Mando does.
Yeah. She used the grappling hook. She used the wrist darts. I feel like there was something else she used too. I can't remember right now off the top of my head, but
she may.
Yeah, so that was fun. I'd like to see her really kit out her armor with all the toys.
Yeah. So for the Sabine and Shin fight, though, how it ended in a draw, like, you know, she shoots the wrist rockets, and then did she get distracted or something along those lines? And then Shin throws down the little like smoke bombs or something like that. Am I remembering that correctly?
Yeah, I think Shin noticed that Marok was down, and probably had a thought of like, Ahsoka's heading to Baylan now. So I think she was ditching to try to make sure that didn't go south.
Yeah, so and that's kind of how that ended, and they eventually both go towards the fight with Shin or with Baylan and Ahsoka. Anything else on the Shin and Sabine fight?
I don't think so. I think we covered it.
Yeah, it felt like it was a long time, fun. But at the same time, like it was fun to watch, but I don't know if there's anything deep to it. Man, Shin is bad though, isn't she? Like she's got the crazy eyes, like she's kind of all over the place. She's a good bad guy.
Because even in that, I guess to add on, even in that moment where she ditches and runs, I mean, you got to wonder how many more tricks Sabine had up her sleeve, right? Like at some point,
she's gonna run out.
You feel like in that fight, it's gonna start to go Shin's way. So
it's true. Yeah, time wasn't on her side there.
Yeah.
Next, and this would have been my favorite part of the episode had it ended any differently, but Ahsoka versus Baylan. I wanna take a little dive into Baylan before we get into the fight. Like he is such a complex character. I think he's probably my favorite character of this show. Would you agree?
Yeah, I love it anytime he's on screen. I feel like he just sucks up all the attention.
Yeah.
He's just kind of this imposing figure who seems to have it all together, seems to know exactly what he's doing, why he's doing it. We don't know those things, right? But he really is he's just really cool. And I always, every time he's on screen, I want to know more about him. I want to know more about what he's doing and why he's doing it. So he really draws you in every time he gets screen time.
I don't know that I was expecting much, as far as the lightsaber duel went and that interaction with Ahsoka. Like we knew he was going to mention Anakin. We've seen that in the trailer. Mm-hmm. And it does make you wonder how he knows so much. Like I want to know his backstory for sure, because he knows what Anakin became, like, but we don't necessarily know that he knows how it finished. Mm-hmm. Like there's no reason to think he's aware that Vader was redeemed, but he knows Anakin and Ahsoka. We know for sure he was in the Order because he said everyone spoke of Anakin.
Yeah.
But how does he know Anakin turned into Vader? Like even if you saw him slaughtering the younglings or going marching on the temple, that was very much pre-Vader as far as like the suit and everything. So how does he know? And that's what I'm interested in, because he's got a thick backstory that we know nothing of.
Yeah, no, agreed. And I'm curious, just like watching him, and maybe I'm reading into it too much, but watching him fight, like all of his fighting seemed very, effective, but also very rudimentary, right? Like, I'm curious as to how much he was actually in the Order before things went down.
Yeah.
I don't know. I guess it hadn't been that long, and he's an older guy, but so
30, so 31 or 32 years, maybe.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know how old he's supposed to be in the show, but
yeah,
he seems effective, but not like he didn't come across as really like a master of dueling with lightsabers or anything. So I don't know. There was just some interesting things in watching that fight. He fought for the most part pretty defensively, just trying to keep her away from that orb until we see Shin get thrown against a wall.
Yeah, he got mad about that, didn't he?
He did, and that's one of the other cool things about his character is we've talked about this before. Is he's not really evil, right? Like he's got an agenda, he's carrying it through, and he's going to do what he needs to do. But I can see, like, if something happened to Shin, I can see that shifting, right? Like he could become a very, very menacing, evil character, I think, if he's driven to do that. So I think that's an interesting dynamic, just with seeing her get hurt and his pretty significant anger response to it.
That dynamic with Shin and him, it makes you want to know more about, is it his daughter? How is that dynamic? Because if you look at the Sith and the rule of two, they don't care about the apprentice. It's just the apprentice is the next master, and the master is the means to the end. And it's just like a grueling cycle of one, killing the other, something happening, whatever. They're disposable. And there's not really a connection between the two. Now, Shin and Baylan, Well, there's very much a master and apprentice, almost like the Jedi Order connection. Yeah. He's defensive of her. And there's a lot of theories out there about who he is and all that. And the more, all of our theories kind of turn to dust, I don't think any of those will really come to fruition. But it's interesting to see how he blends in parts of the Jedi Order, but clearly parts of the dark side as well, but not fully Sith, maybe. He seems just to kind of be aligned with the dark side, but not terribly evil at the same time.
Yeah, and we find out too that he, throughout most of it, you kind of get the idea he's just along for the ride doing his job, but he starts talking about some loftier things, right? Like doing what he's doing for a greater purpose. And so it's starting to sound like he's a little more invested in this than beyond just that it's the job he was hired for, which is interesting. So, but no, you're right. They're really, him and Shin, I think, have a much more, they're way more functional than Ahsoka and Sabine for sure, right? They have a proper functional kind of master apprentice relationship. So
yeah. And so back to the lightsaber duel, I kind of got on a tangent there, but back to the lightsaber duel, like you said, he fights a little rudimentary. Like he's very stiff when he fights. I thought it reminded me a little bit of Kylo Ren fighting. You know how it's just kind of like an overpowering. Kylo fought with the cross guard, so there was that style, anyways. And if you played Jedi Survivor, like it takes that into account. And I thought he fought that way, just very imposing, making like every blow count. But then, like maybe 3/4 of the way through the fight, it actually did pick up a little. Like Ahsoka's flipping around and he's moving a little bit more. I was shocked when the pace picked up because it almost went from an original trilogy fight to a prequel trilogy fight, with Ahsoka jumping everywhere. Yeah. And I thought it visually looked great. So I thought that was a very cool scene and centered around that little star map. So yeah, I have no qualms with the scene, especially as he pushes her to that cliff and you can tell that he's just really overpowering her. It makes you see like, yeah, he is really imposing. So let's shift in this scene to kind of the climax of the scene where Sabine and Shin do show up. So like, Ahsoka throws Shin into the wall because she thinks, Shin's taking Sabine out or something. And so he gets mad and then Sabine shows up. And so it's you get both apprentices there, both masters influenced, protective of their apprentices. But then you see Ahsoka telling Sabine to shoot the star map and then she doesn't. Ahsoka gets knocked in the water, and Baylan starts the process of talking Sabine into giving the star map back so he can take her to Ezra. If I have any complaint in the episode, and again, this is just minor, but I just thought that scene didn't come off as well to me, maybe as it could have. It seemed way too easy for her to get coaxed into handing it over. And I get it, like, time constraints. There was a lot going on, so you couldn't really have a huge backstory and a huge debate over her giving it to him. But it seemed just really quick to me for her just to say, yeah, we'll go with you.
I think this is probably one of the few things that so far doing this that we've really disagreed on, because I get what you're saying about it feeling rushed. It was a very quick conversation that happened very quickly. And so I think in the moment, I was like, well, that was a little bit odd. But the more I thought about it, the more I liked it because Baylan just makes this comment in there that's like, I feel like with everything else that happened, I kind of glossed over it first. But, he makes this comment to Sabine of like, your family died on Mandalore because your master didn't trust you, right?
Yep.
So
there's more we don't know.
We know the Great Purge happened, right, at some point between Rebels and now. Mm-hmm. But the fact that there's something that went down to where apparently Sabine feels that Ahsoka didn't follow through with something or didn't trust her with something or wasn't there for her with that and potentially blamed some of the death of her family on Ahsoka's absence. So, that's a huge thing, right? And so for me, it put into perspective this falling out they had and why Sabine may look at Ahsoka as not trustworthy. Sabine has, she's lost her family for whatever, we don't know what the reason was. We don't know if she asked for Ahsoka for help or what, or that was a really interesting comment to connect those two things together. And I thought back to earlier in the episode where in the last episode, it seems like they were getting along a little bit better, but that went south really quick when Ahsoka brings up, hey, we might have to destroy this thing and sacrifice going to get Ezra to prevent and you could see like Sabine changes then. It's almost like she's like, here we go again, right? Like it's this thing again where I'm having to sacrifice for what you're doing. And so the more I thought about that, the more it didn't bother me, because I felt like all that groundwork in their past and with that scene was already laid for her to feel like, and now don't get me wrong, Balin's totally manipulating her.
Yeah.
But like for someone to finally say to Sabine, hey, you can go get Ezra, right? Not like this game of like, well, maybe we'll find him. We might have to not find him. We might have to, kind of the back and forth she's been dealing with. Like you can see why that would be such a huge appeal to her. And so it made sense for me knowing now that in the past there was this huge falling out to where Ahsoka's lack of trust in Sabine cost her something, right? Yeah. And then now it's kind of like it's happening again.
Yeah, and I'm not okay with her handing it over. I just thought it was like, man, that was easy. But there's a backstory to it as well, like you said, that we don't know yet, which also, we don't have to get into this, but how does Balin know all this stuff? Like he just,
I know.
He knows everything.
He does.
I'll plant one seed, okay, that I've heard this in another video. I don't remember which one it was, but what if Balin has been in the world between worlds, and so that's how he kind of knows all this stuff. Just a thought, to keep in as we go forward. I don't know if that's true or not, but it would answer how he knows everything.
That's true. Yeah, I mean,
and so maybe he's trying to get
knowledge more than anything else.
Yeah, there. I don't know,
but I don't think this is necessarily a betrayal on Sabine's part. I think she's planning. I don't think she's like going along and being like, well, I'll just do whatever they tell me to.
Right. Like I don't think she's all of a sudden a bad guy or anything.
No, and I think she'll be looking for an opportunity. And I don't know. It'll be interesting. So,
I was certainly not expecting, like we both talked about it last week where we thought the episode was going, and we pretty much nailed it. Like the bad guys are going to make that jump.
Yeah.
I don't think we would have guessed that Sabine would have been on the ship though.
No, that was not.
That was not part of our predictions. Yeah. We missed that one.
We kind of knew, we had a feeling they were going to jump and our heroes would be left behind. We just didn't know hero would be singular.
The trailers gave away a ton. That's fine. Like, I'm not disappointed because this show has given a ton as well, but it's crazy how much we have got out of the trailers. So this topic will be very brief for everybody sitting and waiting, like, hey, get to Anakin in the World Between Worlds. We're getting there, but we do need to touch on the New Republic just for a minute, just to air the grievances. It's like Festivus for the New Republic. We're airing the grievances today. So they're so useless. Like the fact that Hera has to like have someone cover to have a clearance code to even take the ghost off of a ship. How ridiculous is that? And I'm not complaining about it. Like they're doing such a great job of making us not like the New Republic. But then we get there and her and Jason, are in the cockpit and they're going and we see all the different X-Wings. And so they're going through and we see some familiar faces. Did you think we might see Zeb in one of them? At any point, did you think that?
I was certainly hoping.
Yeah.
I mean, I was happy to see my man Carson.
Carson Teva showing up's always good.
It was fun to see him, but
yeah,
I was like, where? I mean, I feel like his absence is a bit odd at this point. Like,
there's something there.
Because he was. I mean, part of the Ghost crew, they were all like family. Like, he's got to be in touch with Hera, right? Like, they've got to be communicating at least. So I don't know. I was hoping I'd see him. That there's still half the series left, right? So
there is. So here's the thought I have.
But
we touched on it maybe 2 weeks ago, maybe last week. I don't remember. We talk a lot about Star Wars. It may not have even been on here, but all right. So we know we don't have definitive timelines as far as this goes. We know it is in the same timeline as Mando season 3. I believe Favreau or Filoni once said that.
Yeah, I think they said, yeah.
So is everything we've been watching, has that been going on simultaneously with Mando season 3? And then this is when they show up at that saloon or whatever, where Carson goes and talks to Zeb. Do you think we pick up, maybe in one of the next few episodes with like, he's going to tell Zeb what just happened and like, hey, you need to come get in the fight now. I don't know that that's true, but I'm just kind of piecing all that together with how their ultimate goal is to weave everything. And we have like 4 more episodes and I'm just not sure what they're going to do with it.
Yeah.
So maybe it's going to merge.
I could see that happening. I mean, because they did say that this is happening basically alongside it's happening
the timeline
during season 3 of Mando.
So that's a thought. That's a thought to have. And for sure it's all going to tie together, at least in story. So It would be cool to see them have an overlapping time like that. And we know that Dave likes to overlap things. I mean, how many times have we seen Order 66 from different vantage points? You know, like we see it in the Bad Batch. We see like that last arc in the Clone Wars, the last season. It's simultaneous with Revenge of the Sith. So it wouldn't be out of the realm of possibility for Dave just to line them up and say, hey, this is a big world and this is all happening. You know, it's not separate stories. It's a big story. I think that would be cool.
That's true. Yeah. I mean, you're right. You're spot on with that. He's definitely done that with past things. So,
but this was supposed to be the New Republic section. I got away from the New Republic. So let's just sum it up. They suck. Yep. We've hit that. We've stayed true to form of how bad they are. And lastly, we have Anakin and the world between worlds. So I'm pretty sure this is going to be a lot to talk about. So
this was the thing that, like, I didn't think, like, even though we predicted this would happen, right?
Not now.
To end on this note, right? Like, that's where I was talking about at the beginning, like the amount that they closed out at the end of this episode that I thought was just going to be stretched further along.
Yeah.
One, I think that's great because I think it creates more space in these last half of episodes, right? Like, because now we kick right off at that point in the next episode, and still allows for a lot of time for some other things. And so I'm glad that they did it, but I was not expecting that. That was at all.
And like this planet is very interesting in that. So we see Ezra get into the world between worlds on Lothal, right? So he goes in through that old temple.
That temple,
and then we see Ahsoka getting there.
Yeah, that's the thing, is like the rules, what we know about this place is so limited right now. We don't really know the rules of how this place works, right? Like,
and maybe there aren't any. We don't know.
Because the only way we've seen someone get in is Ezra going in through that temple.
Lothal,
and then we see the Emperor doing some sort of crazy force magic something where he's able to look into it, right? But he's not able to step into it, right? He can't.
Yeah, he tries, but he can't go in.
And so really the only person we've seen actually take a step into this place is Ezra through this specific temple. So how other people get in, I mean, does Anakin pull her in? Does some other force entity pull her in? Like, we just have no idea how that works in terms of her falling off a cliff and now she's in the world between worlds. So.
Yeah, there's a lot of questions there and there's not a lot of answers. So it just leaves us like this next 6 days is going to be like the 2 years between episode 7 and episode 8. I mean, you want to talk about peak Star Wars? That was it. And then now I think we're living in peak Star Wars right now. I mean, we've been talking off and on for 24 hours. I'm assuming it will continue for the next 5 sets of 24 hours we have until then.
Yeah, by the time we get to Monday, we'll have exhausted all the sensical things, and we'll just be talking about the most ridiculous possible scenarios.
It's going to be that It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia meme, where he's got like the conspiracy theory up on the board. That's pretty much going to be the Star Wars content creators for the next week. I do want to touch on this. We talked about it last night. It's the one thing, like when the episode ended, I was kind of like, they just played, the Imperial March. They played Vader's score, or they started to transition into it. And so a couple of notes, and I've watched around on a few things, a few different creators that have put out videos. I don't think all is well in the world between worlds. I'm not sure that this is even Anakin. Is it a projection of Anakin? Is it a manipulation? It's certainly not his Force ghost, because he's got the glove on his prosthetic arm. Yeah. His lightsaber is not his episode 3 lightsaber, and I don't know that Force ghosts carry lightsabers either. So that was interesting. And then they do play the dark score at the end. It ends very murky. We don't know where it's going. So what do you think about that?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that's the hard thing to figure out, is because I think the initial reaction when you see him is you're just like so excited to see Anakin, right?
Yeah.
But then the more you think about it, it's like, well, how did this Anakin get there, right? Like, it can't be a real Anakin. Like, I mean, not like a in the past Anakin who somehow got into the world between worlds, because that wouldn't make sense, because
it would theoretically mess up the timeline, right?
Yeah. And so there's a lot of questions about what this, because we're used to seeing Force ghosts look a certain way, right? This does not look like a Force ghost.
It's not a Force ghost,
right? And so what this is kind of up in the air. I would love for it to be, not just for the nostalgia purpose, I would love for it to be post Return of the Jedi Anakin, simply because we've never seen that, right? We've never gotten to hear post Return of the Jedi Anakin talk about what he did.
Yeah, he's got to set the story straight at some point.
I want so badly to hear him talk about where he's at now, like how he's come to terms, because he was obviously redeemed, right? We know that, but like, what is his perspective of what happened? I would love to hear that. So,
and we're gonna get it too. And so, you never read Shadows of the Sith, did you? The book that came out last summer that follows Luke. It follows Luke and Lando. It's a great story. Like, if you want to enhance your sequel viewing experience, I think you should read Shadow of the Sith and watch episode 7 and episode 9. In that book, Anakin's Force Ghost appears to Luke at a point of it, and he's very much involved with like the darkness going on. It's almost as if he's, pointing Luke in the right direction, that there's still like a lot of bad happening in the galaxy. And this is like 10, 15 years post Return of the Jedi. So we're going to get that at some point, because Anakin is not just a, bystander in any of this. He's an upstander, if anything. Like he is there. And so I'm excited to see that by the end of this season. But I don't think this World Between Worlds Anakin, I think this is going to be very like almost nefarious how this is going to play out next week.
Yeah, which brings up the question of who or what are we dealing with, right? I remember an interview a while back talking about, I think it might have been one of the showrunners for Rebels, talking about Ezra's experience in the World Between Worlds and how it was, what he saw and heard was tailored to his experiences, right? Because it's a point where all the Force meets.
Yep.
And so, there are other things that are not related to him, but he's just specifically tuned into the things that are. And so if this is just something she's tuned into that's happening and occur, I mean, it's just, there's no way to know. I mean, it could very well be, I don't know, like the sun, right? Like,
so I've
there's
seen
so many
that.
directions you could take this. Like, I don't know where to start.
Yeah. So I'm in a group message with Rogue Nation, Noah with him, and then Tony with Star Wars Sith and a few others. And so both of them have been throwing a lot of ideas around. And so check those channels out, because you can watch all of their ideas on their channels as well. I'll link them in the comments below or in the description below. But the one idea is that it is potentially the sun, and he's like manipulating the Force or whatever to mess with Ahsoka, which wouldn't be the first time we've seen him mess with Ahsoka, right? Like in the Clone Wars, there's that Mortis arc. There's a lot there.
He kills her.
Yeah. Yeah. So there's a thought that, is Ahsoka even like, is she in the World Between Worlds? I don't know that anyone else has said this, but like, is she just in the water drowning and she's, her mind is taking
imagining things?
Yeah. Like, is she in hypoxia or whatever? Like, and she's just imagining being there talking to Anakin, and it's not really going to be anything. I lean towards, though, that this is bad Anakin. And to some capacity, and it's not going to be super happy in the World Between Worlds. But I do think the entire next episode, probably the good 90-10 split of Ahsoka there plus the New Republic doing whatever they're doing with Hera, is the other 10% of the episode.
I think we might also see just some transit scenes with Sabine aboard the ring ship. I mean, they're obviously going to be traveling for a little while, so...
Yeah, so fun fact, there's 9 seconds of trailer footage that we haven't seen yet. There's 9 seconds.
Interesting.
So it's Thrawn walking into on the
bridge of that ship.
The bridge of the ship. And then there's like the New Republic ship showing up. That's like 7 seconds right there. And then there may have been like one other scene like with Hera or something. So essentially, outside of the one little Thrawn reveal, we've seen
primarily exhausted.
We've exhausted it. It's out there now. So will be interesting to see just what's going to happen now. Like, we're in the great unknown. We could put together a lot of it, but now we can't put together any. Next week, they think, Disney being they know they've done well with this. So I don't know if you saw it, but they're putting episode 5 out in like a ton of AMC theaters around the country. They know they've done good. Now, I know where you're at in South Carolina, y'all don't have AMC. And then where I'm at here in Florida, we don't have AMC in this part of town either. Like, you got to get down to Orlando. Yeah. So, I'll be watching it at home on my TV. But that if they're like, hey, we're going to put it in theater, they know they've done something pretty good with it. And Dave is directing it.
I'm really excited to watch it. I don't know that they're gonna spoil anything for the show, of course, but
this may be the first radio silence we get for the next week from them.
It's crazy.
Be fine. Let us toil for 6 days.
Yeah, I would prefer for it not to be like a dark Anakin. Thinking about the music at the end, like I was at the time I was thinking that maybe it's just Ahsoka's realization of who she's talking to, right? Like this, she's not just talking to Anakin, but she's talking to Darth Vader.
Yeah,
right?
That's true too. Yeah,
like a realization of like, oh, it's Anakin. Oh, it's Anakin, right? So I would prefer that. I would be more interested in seeing that Anakin, especially if we do get an Anakin who is, I think you and I talked about this, just remorseful but not really apologetic, right? Like I did what I did. I don't like what I did, but not super mad that the Jedi Order got wiped out, right? Like
it had to happen.
I wouldn't see Anakin feeling bad that the Jedi Order doesn't exist anymore, right?
Yeah, like, they did him pretty wrong.
Yeah. Like you can't expect that he's just going to be like, oh, well, maybe I should just let all that go. No, I mean, no,
he's a result of their abuse.
I would love to see, I would just really like to see an Anakin that falls into that category of like, look, I did what I did, and there's a lot of things I don't like that I did, but at the same time, there are some things that are better because of what I did.
Yeah, right? Like, that would be a good.
That would be a really interesting thing to see in him. So I don't know. We'll see.
So I'm going to go on the record now because I'm going to make a prediction video over the weekend because I need we're recording this Wednesday. It'll come out Friday, but I need 3 or 4 days to figure out what I think is going to happen. But I do think this is not going to be actual Anakin. It is maybe some variation of Anakin at a certain time. I don't know. But it's not the redeemed Anakin Force Ghost, post Return of the Jedi. I think she's going to have to go through whatever this learning process in the World Between Worlds is. And the payoff at the end of the show will be what you're wanting out of Force Ghost Anakin, like him setting the record straight. And maybe we don't even see or hear all of it, but we see that conversation happens. And I think, episode 5, not real Anakin. Episode 8, Force Ghost Anakin.
Force Ghost Anakin. That's fair.
Yeah, so
I think that's a fair prediction. Yeah, I do think that she's actually in the World Between Worlds because I think she's got to find something that's going to let her get to this place, right? Like I've been trying to think of how that's going to go down. So I don't know if she's obviously she can't find Ezra and pull him out, right? Like he's got to go back where he came. That was one of the things that I remember Filoni said about the World Between Worlds is when Ahsoka got pulled out, she was smart enough to know that she couldn't go back the way Ezra came. She had to go back the way she came, or things would
that's
fall
true.
apart. So in the World Between Worlds, it's not time travel, but there's these opportunities to adjust moments just a little bit, right? Like to where it doesn't put a person completely different. Like you can't go from this place to this place to this place, but you can alter things. And so
that's a good point.
Curious if she was able to contact Ezra, he's like, hey, I can tell you how to communicate with the Purgle, right? Like that was something Ezra knew how to do. He had that way with living creatures. And so
the Purgle, I think, are going to get him there.
Yeah. So I'm curious to see where this is going to lead her to figuring out getting point A to point B. She's going to have to figure out something there. So
last thing I'm going to throw out there, we don't have to discuss it, but man, they are setting up this second galaxy for a lot of cool stuff. I did have a person comment and mention that as well, that hey, it would be super cool to see Bo-Katan and Mando and all them in this other galaxy. And so I think that's where they're going, to tie this all up. I think we're going to see all these characters that we love in The Mandalorian and eventually Skeleton Crew, if that ever happens, plus this. I think they're setting up this alternate galaxy where we're not going to actually see, Grogu get sliced up by Kylo Ren, and we're not going to see, the Mandalorian be completely absent and things like that. So it wouldn't shock me at all if we do get quite a bit of world building in this second galaxy.
So you're saying permanently transporting these characters to a different place.
Yeah, by the end of the whole Mandoverse, not this fall or anything, but 2020, by 2028, I think we have a whole playground sandbox out there that we're building in. And I think that's pretty cool. I mean, I know what your opinion is. You like the galaxy or, the idea of the one galaxy we've been in, but at the same time, I don't mind the idea of, hey, what's out there?
Yeah, no, I hope the next episode, I'd love for it to just end on the ship arriving, right? Like we just get
to
this
that other galaxy,
of just the arrival, and that's how we kind of cut out. But you don't think if they go that route, Thrawn wouldn't even make it back to
correct. He's not coming back to this galaxy.
Yeah.
No, I don't think they think that that'll happen. I just think there's too much cleanup work to do to get from episode 6 to 7 for them to keep it.
Run into those.
You run into it, and we're like 9 years past Return of the Jedi right now, I think.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you've only got 21 more to play with, and in fiction that can go pretty quick. So I think they almost have to, and maybe time works differently over there, so maybe it can still work out. But I do think we're gonna make a jump over there, and that's how our heroes coexist and without retconning episodes 7, 8, and 9. They can both work in this harmony that Dave's created.
I don't think I'd mind that. I mean, I think my initial concern with the new galaxy is if they're going to like introduce it as this big thing and then not ever address it again, right? If it just that's what would have bugged me.
No, I think we're gonna stay there.
That would be interesting for sure. That would change a lot of Thrawn's kind of previous history.
Yeah, so. and I could be way wrong, but it just seems like that seems like their solution to the sequel trilogy. You can't get rid of it, but you can run away from it.
Yeah, you're right. Because one of the other things that I maybe hoped the direction it was going is because, Thrawn was in both the Legends and in the recent books, he's all about making sure that his people are safe, right? That's kind of why he joined the Empire and sided with them. And in all of that, upon his return, like he's aware that there's some other forces out there. And so part of him rebuilding like the Empire was because he thought there was a bigger threat, right? And so I would also be happy with seeing like Thrawn come back, try to do this. We see that he's trying to prepare for a bigger threat that maybe comes much, much later. I don't know. But you're right. I mean, you start running into these movies though, and you got to start asking, well, where are these characters, right? Like they were so present in everything else, and now they've kind of vanished. So you do almost have this limited window to kind of wrap things up and make it make sense. So I don't know.
And with that, we've also kind of hit our window to wrap things up on this episode.
Gosh, yeah.
So I will say, again, episode 4 was amazing. We tried to hit the high points. We probably missed a lot. Jason's force sensitive. We don't have to talk about it, but we saw that as well. Just throw that in there. But the next episode, neither one of us are really quite sure where we're going, but Disney thinks it's going to be good. We think it's going to be good. They're killing it with this show. So definitely, I mean, drop in the comments where you think we're going. What did you think of episode 4? I'm really just completely at a blank on where it could go from here. So I'm excited to see. It's a good place to be for a fan. And, in no time, episode 5 will be here and we'll be talking about this again. So I'm excited to see where we're at a week from now.
Yeah, I think episode 5 will allow us to have maybe a better idea of what to start looking for in the last episode. So I'm excited for it.
For sure. Well, thank you guys for joining us. If you made it this far, please hit the like button and subscribe if you're new to the channel. Let me know if you subscribed. I'd like to connect with you in the comments. Otherwise, thanks for watching and may the Force be with you.